If you watched Saw and thought, get rid of the dying guy, keep the doll, boy do I have the movie for you. Dead Silence was James Wan and Leigh Whannell's first collaboration after Saw, and attempts to finally realize that thing we all fear. Dummies. Ventriloquist dummies. I won't sugarcoat it, this is not a great movie, but there is some creepy and interesting stuff to talk about. Since its release, Wan has reflected on the movie's failure, but positions it more as something audiences rejected because they wanted more Saw-type stuff. Whannell, on the other hand, has been more forward about what went wrong behind the scenes. Especially in his blog post that's no longer up, the title tells you everything. Dead Silence, the hellish experience of making a bad horror film. We'll go into some of that story later. For now, let's check out the movie itself. It starts on old-fashioned text. In the 6th century BC, it was believed that the spirits of the dead would speak through the stomach region of the living, from the Latin venter for belly and loqui to speak, hence the word ventriloquist. Get used to this, the movie loves to explain stuff, probably a side effect of studio demands. In his post, Whannell mentions how they were never happy with his drafts of the script, and their pushback was often around rules. They wanted all the rules of the movie to be clear, and for all this movie's faults, thank God, the rules around the magic killer doll are crystal clear. We see a woman's hands at work, writing and drawing in a notebook, designing the perfect doll. Judging by the scratchy look of the footage, we're meant to understand this happened a long time ago. In the present, meet Jamie Ashen and his wife Lisa. Jamie and Lisa meet Billy. No, not that Billy. This Billy is your classic ventriloquist dummy. He shows up on their doorstep in a package from some anonymous person. It reminds Lisa of that poem from when they were kids. Beware the stare of Mary Shaw. She had no children, only dolls. Something, something. She can't quite remember the rest. While Jamie heads out for some Chinese food, Lisa dies. Oh no. Anyway, okay, you want to know how it happened. First, the dummy acts weird. She leaves it on the bed, hoping to prank Jamie when he gets home. Then you hear a creak, and suddenly it's facing toward her. After that, everything goes silent. The tea kettle, clock, and stereo. Creepy giggle. She approaches the dummy, which she's left under a sheet. Suddenly, that sheet flies over her head. She's flung out of the room. You hear the sounds of, kind of sounds like knives scraping, like what you'd hear at a hibachi restaurant. Hopefully she liked hibachi, because it's the last thing she'll ever hear. Scratch that. Hopefully she likes the sound of herself screaming, because that is the last thing she'll ever hear. Jamie comes home. Where's Lisa? She calls from the bedroom. I'm in here. Jamie slips on some blood. What is going on? Lisa, or as the closed captions put it, not Lisa, calls out again. I have a surprise for you, Jamie. Only her voice echoes, and you can pick up on a second voice of an older lady. In the bedroom, under the sheet, Jamie finds her dead, her mouth wide open and tongue ripped out. It's not the worst opening to a horror movie. It is suitably creepy and brings some new ideas to the table. We've heard ghosts or demons fake someone's voice before, so the not Lisa thing isn't particularly unique, but the idea that it's coming from a puppetized version of her is a different angle. We'll also later learn there's a rule. If you scream, you die. And that rule activates the moment everything goes silent. That's also an interesting effect. That doesn't amount to much here, but you could imagine in a better movie, it'd be a great way to build tension. It's something you often do in horror anyway. Things get quiet in preparation for a jump scare. But here, the getting quiet part is actually built into the story. Once Jamie finds her dead, the camera zooms out, turning the scene into a reflection on his eye to show him staring wide-eyed as the police arrive and the coroners take her body. The same effect is used again to reveal him in the interrogation room. It's a cool transition and on brand for James Wan. Despite the bad script and studio interference, some of his and Whannell's talents still shine through. On his end, it's the camera work that's stylistic and purposeful. rehearsal, here drawing attention to Jamie's wide-eyed shock and the dreamlike passage of time in that state. The cop interrogating him, Detective Jim Lipton, is played by Donnie Wahlberg, who played a similar role in Saw 2 a couple of years earlier. Lipton makes two things clear. One, he likes a good shave, because he's always shaving in just about every scene he's in. And two, he suspects Jamie killed his wife. He doesn't see the relevance of the unmarked package they received, even when Jamie tries to explain. In the town he's from, a dummy is seen as a bad omen. Anyway, Jamie isn't actually under arrest yet, so he's free to go. Back home, he inspects the box the dummy came in and spots a logo, The Amazing Mary Shaw and Billy in Raven's Fair. That's the same Mary Shaw from the poem Lisa quoted, and Raven's Fair is the town Jamie is from, so that's where he goes. As he arrives, there's another cool transition, where the camera moves from his car to a painting on the town's welcome sign, but the painting becomes animated so the car is moving, as though Jamie has entered the painting, as if he's crossing over from mundane reality into the surreal world of Mary Shaw and her dummies. Passing through the rundown town, Jamie arrives at his estranged father's mansion. There, he meets Ella, apparently his new stepmom. After a stroke, his father is in a wheelchair, so he requires a lot of assistance from her. The conversation threatens to turn argumentative. You can tell he wasn't the best father, and Jamie hasn't been shy about telling him so. But that isn't why he's here. Jamie is here to ask about Mary Shaw. Beware the stare of Mary Shaw. She had no children, only dolls. And if you see her in your dreams, how'd the rest of it go? Ella remembers. Be sure you never, ever scream. But it's just a dumb superstition, Ella and his dad both assure him. The dad, by the way, played by Bob Gunton, who you definitely recognize. He's one of those character actors who pops up in a lot of places. Shawshank Redemption, 24, Daredevil. Next, Jamie heads to the mortician Henry to pick up some forms, then finally retires for the evening at the motel. By the way, if you go to stay at a motel and it looks like this, you should assume you're in a horror movie and abide by the relevant rules. As he tries to sleep, all sound goes silent, and the dummy slowly turns to look at him. He hears a voice call out his name and wakes up to see it. Then, in its place, a wheezing older woman, clearly undead from the looks of things. Jamie turns on the light, and she's gone. Back in her place, only Billy. You know, if a dummy killed my wife, and then for some reason I had to spend a night with that dummy in a horror movie motel, I too would make sure to prop it up and have it stare at me all night while I try to sleep. I'm sure I'd sleep like a baby between the killer dummy staring at me and the red glow from outside.
What's going on in there?
The characters constantly make questionable decisions, but I don't know what's worse, that or how bland they are. In a horror movie as dark and self-serious as this one, bland characters are a death sentence because it makes it such an unpleasant affair. On the bright side, one thing Whannell and Juan talked about before making the movie was going old school. They wanted to revive the Hammer horror aesthetic. If you aren't familiar, Hammer Horror is a film studio that in the 50s, 60s, and 70s came out with new takes on Frankenstein, Dracula, The Mummy, and more. The movies were in color, they embraced violence in a way that was impossible in the 30s and 40s, and they really leaned into the gothic atmosphere. You definitely notice the homage in these foggy night scenes. Meanwhile, Lisa's body is finally released from police custody, so Henry the Mortician gets his first look at it. His reaction says he recognizes the manner of death, and it portends something awful. After the funeral, Jamie takes a stroll through the spooky woods, as one does, and spots Henry's wife Marion wandering. It's not unusual. In her old age, her mind has been going. Before Henry takes her back home, she asks Jamie if he saw Mary Shaw. She's here. No one is safe. You must bury the doll. Jamie walks over to a nearby gravestone and moves some branches out of the way to reveal the grave of Mary Shaw. That night, he grabs the dummy and puts it in the passenger seat next to him, as one does, and they have one of those awkward moments where a doll stares at you, then you glance over and it quickly looks away like, I wasn't staring, you were staring. Well, how'd you know I was staring unless you were staring? So you admit you were staring. He brings it back to the cemetery where he finds a bunch of little graves next to Mary Shaw's. He finds the one marked Billy, and digging it up reveals an empty coffin. He puts the doll in there and reburies it. First, it gives one last stare. And before driving off, Jamie hears some giggling, sees something running around his car. Then he sees the dummy staring at him one last time. Why does Jamie bury the doll? An offhand remark by a senile woman raving in the woods? It's also unclear what he's hoping to achieve. He isn't even sure the dummy killed his wife. We know that because it's a horror movie, but there's nothing to indicate it will strike again. Think of other horror movies like The Ring or Smile, where interacting with the thing at the beginning sets a very tangible ticking clock in motion. If they can make you care about the characters, then there's tension watching them try to escape their fate. But here, they haven't established a threat or made us care about Jamie, and even if we did care, he's the only real character, so we know he can't die until the end. For this movie to work, I think it had to take a page out of the slasher playbook and bring in a few more characters. Characters who we're less certain will make it to the end of the movie. That would also allow for some more fun dummy kills. Back at the motel, Jamie finds a doll and a guy shaving. Lipton is back, and he's unburied Billy, then accuses him of trying to bury evidence.
You know, Jamie, you really are forcing me to use the word perplexed an awful lot lately.
You and me both, pal. If the dummy really is evidence, why wasn't it collected at the crime scene, especially when it was suspiciously delivered in an unmarked package right before Jamie's wife's murder? And why is the detective manhandling that evidence instead of putting it in one of those evidence bag things? Maybe they don't make them in dummy size, I don't know. Jamie explains himself as best he can. He tells Lipton the old story, how Mary Shaw was buried with her dolls. That's what all those little graves are. That's where Billy came from, so he was just putting him back. And how if you ever see Mary Shaw, make sure you never scream.
Oh. Well, you end up without a tongue. I guess your wife didn't listen then, huh? Hey!
Clearly, Jamie is starting to believe this ghost story. Lipton is a bit more skeptical. He takes the doll and returns to his room. Yes, he's decided to stay in the next room over.
You know, I noticed you have very smooth skin. What's your secret?
So one thing Whannell said in his blog post is that eventually the studio gave up on working with him and hired a script doctor instead. As Whannell puts it, a script doctor is someone who is brought in to fix scripts that aren't working. They are paid obscene amounts of money and sometimes don't receive any credit on the finished film, working anonymously like ninja mercenaries in the night. I don't want to go into detail about what parts of the script are mine and what are the script doctors, but I will say that the Donnie Wahlberg shaving thing was not mine. But you can definitely tell the script doctor who put it in really thought they struck gold. The next day, when the detective leaves, Jamie breaks into his room, grabs a doll, and heads to the funeral home to ask about Mary Shaw. Henry finally tells him what's up. There are things you remember and things you can't forget, like the look on that woman's face when she died. Remember what I said about the movie being self-serious? Anyway, the gist of it is this. Back in Ravens Fair's heyday, Mary Shaw gave a ventriloquist performance at the Guignol Theater out on Lost Lake. But this one kid in the audience, Michael, humiliated her, yelling about how you can see her lips moving when Billy is talking. Some weeks later, the boy went missing, and not long after that, Mary was murdered. In her will, she asked for her dummies, she called them her children, to be buried with her, all 101 of them. Her body was brought to Henry's father's mortuary so he could work on her other final request. She wanted to become a doll herself. There's a creepy flashback where Henry, as a kid, snoops on his father's work. He sees Mary with her new jaw, made like a dummy's to be manipulated up and down. He accidentally knocks over the table holding her body, and for a moment sees her standing, before his father comes to the rescue and she's back where she fell. The image of a human turned into a dummy is this movie's secret and pretty much only weapon. It's an unusual and creepy thing to see, but you don't actually see much of it. Going back to what I said earlier, the movie needed more victims, and it could lean into this image more often. Instead, it leans very heavily on the mystery concept. What's really going on with Mary Shaw? But because we barely knew Lisa, barely know Jamie, and have no explicitly looming threat, the only thing that keeps you going is mild curiosity. Ever since her death, Raven's Fair has been plagued by death. People killed with their tongues removed and posed in family portraits. Where to next?
You said she lived out at that old theater, right? The one on Lost Lake?
No, he didn't say that. He said she performed there. Does Jamie think that performers all live at the venues where they perform? So like if he sees a few concerts at Madison Square Garden, is he like, wow, I can't believe these bands all live here together. Must be a tight squeeze, wow. Before he goes, Henry warns him, Jamie, please be careful. If you go looking for answers, you might just find them. Thank you, Henry, for that contribution. He heads to the lake while Detective Lipton stops at the cemetery to dig up all the dolls by Mary's grave. I honestly couldn't tell you why.
Morning, Mary. Just gonna go check in on the kids.
At the old theater, Jamie doesn't notice Mary's ghost in the window, but he does notice her notebook, the one where she was designing the perfect doll, the one containing newspaper scraps about the missing boy, Michael Ashen. Ashen. Why does that name sound familiar? Oh my God. What, you don't remember? That's our main character's last name. Jamie, it turns out, is related to the kid who humiliated Mary Shaw, then went missing. Suddenly, everything goes quiet, like it did just before Billy killed Lisa. Jamie sees a ghost in the mirror, then frantically leaves. At the funeral home, Henry finds Marion talking to Billy, so he decides to bury him once and for all, again. But before he can, Billy makes everything go quiet. Mary appears, and Henry screams. Exactly what the poem warned against. Now that means no more tongue, and also no more being alive. Jamie, meanwhile, storms back to his father's home to demand answers about Michael Ashen. Sweet. Another explanation flashback. Strap in, boys and girls. After Michael, Jamie's great-uncle, humiliated Mary Shaw, he disappeared. The family assumed it was her doing, so they dealt out some justice, made her scream and cut out her tongue. After that, everyone involved in killing her died the same way, with their tongues ripped out. Same thing happened to their wives, children, and children's children. That's why he sent Jamie away when he was younger. He wasn't a bad dad. He was trying to protect him from the curse. My dad used the same excuse on me, or at least he used the word dummy a lot. I'm just filling in the blanks. Jamie storms out, intent on somehow stopping all this, when he bumps into Detective Jim Lipton. He wants to know what the hell is going on. He spent all night unburying all 100 of Mary's dolls, but found all the graves empty. I'd love to hear the call with HQ where they're like, where have you been all night? We've got an important case here we need you on. Well, I was busy. I had to dig up 100 graves. Human graves? No, dolls. Why? Well, Jamie said they were buried there. So? I don't know. It made sense last night. They're interrupted by a call from Not Henry, telling Jamie to come to the theater for proof he didn't kill his wife. All right, that's why he's doing all this, right? To prove he didn't kill his wife? I gotta say, that doesn't really manifest as a genuine threat in the movie because Detective Jim Lipton clearly has nothing. If the best he can come up with is spending an entire night digging up 100 doll graves, I mean, he's gotta be pretty desperate. Jamie runs to his car and takes off for the theater. Lipton follows. Foggy night, gothic theater, it does have that Hammer horror vibe at least. In the theater, Lipton demands Jamie come with him, but Jamie tells him, trust me, Henry is here.
He is not here.
Yes, he is.
You said I told you so. I'll shoot you.
As they follow Not Henry's voice, Jamie reminds Lipton not to scream no matter what. Behind the curtain, they find a large case where the exhumed dolls have been arranged, all but one. Billy. Not in a case is one particularly weird doll, because this one isn't a doll at all. It's the corpse of Michael Ashen, dummified and attached to puppet strings. Then, unnatural silence, which means at this point, anyone who screams dies. Suddenly, the dolls all start turning their heads towards something. What are they looking at? A clown doll. Billy from Saw? No, a different clown, but it does have a spiral on its head, so I think fair to call it an Easter egg. The image of all those dolls slowly turning to look in the same direction is genuinely creepy, though the reveal that they're looking at a clown doll feels out of left field. It's clearly just part Saw homage and part hey, clowns are creepy, rather than something Shaw would actually make. The clown doll speaks with Mary Shaw's voice. Jamie demands answers. Why did she kill Lisa? The answer? She wants to kill every last Ashen in the bloodline as revenge for what they did to her. And though Jamie didn't know it, Lisa had an Ashen growing inside her. She was pregnant. This was actually hinted at in the opening sequence. While Jamie is gone, Lisa stuffs her shirt and looks at the mirror, picturing how she'll soon look. Finally, the ghost of Mary lifts the doll, and Lipton blasts it away with a shotgun. So Mary possesses another doll. Lipton shoots that one too. So she possesses another one. Lipton shoots that one. We can do this all day, lady. Though if Mary wants to get away, I feel like she should just get in a doll and hide, rather than continually doing the CGI face stretchy thing that gives her away. Jamie throws his lantern into the dolls to set them ablaze, leaving her no quarter. As the building burns, they run, except the ghost of Mary chases them and knocks Lipton off the catwalk. He screams, which means he dies. The electric razor clatters to the ground next to his corpse, just out of reach. The worst part? Once his body dehydrates and the skin pulls back, that 5 o'clock shadow will return. At least after a few weeks, when the skin liquefies and the follicles fall out, he won't have to worry about shaving ever again. That is disgusting, I'm sorry. She knocks Jamie down too, but he manages to stifle his scream and land in the lake below. Now, time to destroy the last remaining doll, Billy. At the funeral home, he finds Marion cradling her late husband, Henry. Through sobs, she tells Jamie that his father took Billy. How? Isn't his father in a wheelchair? At his father's house, Jamie finds Billy, and before the ghost of Mary can get him, he burns the doll. And that's the last dummy, right? Well, he notices his father sitting there in the dark, silently. Then he notices the hole in his back and the mechanism inside. Ella has been puppeting him the whole movie. That's why she always had her hand on his back. Scratch that, in his back. And when she let go, his head would droop forward like he was deactivated. When she fed him soup, you even see that it was actually just dropping uselessly in his back cavity. Ew. So Jamie's dad has been a dummy the whole movie. That is awesome. And who is Ella? Remember the notebook where Mary was designing the perfect doll? That's Ella. She's a doll, a vessel Mary built in life, then possessed in death. As Ella, she was able to complete her revenge on the Ashen bloodline. The only one left is Jamie. He turns around to see Ella standing there with a mix of Mary on her face. The movie ends on the only line it could have.
Now, who's the dummy?
That's weird though, because she's using the word dummy as a pejorative against Jamie, even though she chose to be a dummy in her will. So to her, being a dummy is a good thing. It's like if I wanted to be a content creator and now I am one, then I mentored someone else and helped them enter the field, and then I go, now who's the content creator? Jamie screams. Cut to black as we hear a squish sound. That's the sound of his tongue being removed. And reveal Mary's completed photo album of corpses, now including Jamie. She closes the book, and with it, her story of revenge. But the movie could have ended another way. The Blu-ray contains an alternate ending. This one reveals that Ella was a real person. She was Edward Ashton's wife, and he was abusive toward her, so much so he caused her to lose a pregnancy. After that, Ella goes a little mad, which opens her mind to the spirit of Mary Shaw. Mary promises to provide her what she wants most, a family. And so Mary Shaw possesses Ella, just like in the theatrical version of the movie, except in this case she's human, not a doll. Ella knocks Jamie out and ties him up, then reveals how they can still be a happy family. Jamie wakes up on a couch next to her between two human dummies, his father and his wife Lisa. Finally, Jamie screams. Then one last reveal. But first, the alternate ending also comes with an alternate opening to the movie. In the alternate opening, it begins with an unseen woman telling a bedtime tale to her unseen little boy. The ending reveals that the unseen woman was Ella, and the unseen boy was Jamie, with her puppeting him. So, as promised, Mary gave Ella a family. It just happens to be a family of corpse dummies. I'm sure she'll learn to love them. This version makes the photo album thing make a little more sense because it ties into the idea of putting a fake puppet family together. I have to say, the twist with Jamie's dad is awesome. Sure, demons, ghosts, and malevolent spirits have often puppeted humans by possessing them, but to see it done mechanically is so macabre, and it speaks to a core issue with this movie. There are some weird and interesting ideas, but none were built on the foundation of a strong story. Whannell says as much in his blog post. The way this story came about is that Saw was a big hit at Sundance, so Whan and Whannell's representatives recommended they should get another deal lined up. That way, if Saw were to flop, they'd have another film to fall back on. Except Whannell came up with Saw organically, and now he was being asked to conjure up a new idea from thin air. So he locked himself in a bedroom, took up smoking, and came up with ventriloquist dummies. They pitched the idea, and Whannell couldn't be happier when it was accepted, because it was such a relief after all the stress. After that, he talks about brainstorming with James, coming up with the Hammer horror idea, and he goes on. We saw hundreds of dolls lined up in a Madman's collection, giving you that chill you get from a really good Twilight Zone episode. We heard wolves howling and crows screeching and piano keys tinkling. All great stuff, but not in any way a story. The stuff James and I were discussing is what you talk about after you've written a story. It's the look and feel of a film, not the film itself. So instead of typing out a nightmarish story, the only nightmare I was experiencing was turning a bunch of cool images into a story. He did his best, went back and forth for a while, and then the script doctor came in. He alludes to James Wan having to fight his own battles on set too, but leaves the story for him to tell. So we don't know all the details. In the end, Wan and Whannell are a talented director-writer team, so some creepy ideas and visuals sneak through the mess. But ultimately, it is a mess. And maybe that's the lesson in all this. Sometimes, life is messy, especially when dummies are involved, ventriloquist or otherwise.